Hey, happy weekend, everyone. Josh's Severe Weather. Thank you for joining me this morning. If you are a first-time guest, I'm a meteorologist out of the Raleigh, North Carolina area, and my expertise is communicating somewhat technical information that can help save lives. My goal is to break down what's going to be impactful weather here in the U.S., in the tropics as well. And this weekend, we're going to see a significant outbreak of severe weather starting in the Central Plains and then spreading east into the Ohio and Tennessee valleys for tomorrow, and then into the eastern United States for the beginning of next week. The tropics are pretty quiet on the Atlantic side for now. We'll talk about where the next system could form. And then on the Pacific side, we definitely have some major systems to talk about as well. No threat to the US, but certainly worldwide. So thank you for joining me. If you are a first-time guest or you've been watching a few times, please consider subscribing here. It helps me grow my reach. I started this channel back in December. It's growing pretty nicely, but we could always use more of you. And it brings me joy just to do my best to help prepare you guys for rough weather and plan ahead here. I do have a membership channel. It's 33 cents a day if you would like to have faster responses, more of a sense of community, and help get some more tailored forecasts that you just can't get from your local TV meteorologists. They only have so much time to go over what they can. I have some experience doing longer range and seasonal forecasts, and I can help you guys out with your trips as well. So let me share my screen with you, and let's talk about the powerful storms that are expected to form here later today and track eastward. Significant severe weather possible, especially in this area that I've highlighted in orange from near the Denver, Colorado area eastward across the Central Plains through southern Missouri, which has already gotten hit so hard here this past week with heavy rain, into Kentucky and Tennessee and southern Illinois, where we've had flash flooding, and likely continuing east into the Ohio Valley states and the Northeast for early next week. And the area of greatest concern for damage is going to be from southeast Colorado into northwestern Oklahoma and southwestern Kansas and the northern tip of the Texas Panhandle. And a lot of that's going to happen here tonight as very strong winds come out of the Rockies aloft, and we have a very unstable air mass. Unfortunately, on the Gulf Coast, we're not going to see much relief from the heat over the next several days. This front is going to make its way down close to the Red River Valley here and cool us off a little bit, but it will bring quite a bit of rain and storms with it. But farther south, no relief from the heat expected. Excessive heat warnings continue for much of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. It does cool a bit here later on this weekend, only for a few days though. And the Southwest remains very hot as well. We are going to heat up over the rest of the Southeast. It's been a bit cooler where I am here in the Carolinas due to the cloud cover, but we're expected to resume typical heat and humidity that you would expect this summer. So a bit of a fall preview, but unfortunately, that's not going to last too long. Now, on the big picture, this is the water vapor image. It shows where our upper level disturbances are, where all the moisture is aloft. And you can see we do have a forming cyclone here across the Wyoming-Colorado basin. That is going to expand eastward and accelerate and likely lead to additional rounds of storms over the same places that have been dealing with it. So Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, northern Arkansas into the lower Ohio River Valley, all under the gun here. The shift of the severe weather threat has been a little bit farther south with respect to what we saw yesterday, keeping the Chicagoland and mid-Great Lakes kind of out of the meat of what this storm track is going to be. But you could still have some rough weather and heavy rain. But we're expecting the worst weather to be along and south of Interstate 70 here as we head into the overnight hours tonight and into the day tomorrow. We've got a lot of rain coming with this storm, a lot of tropical moisture meeting with the periphery of this high pressure ridge, and certainly a flood threat here in the Dakotas today and tonight. We continue that threat for flooding as well across the mid-Mississippi and lower Ohio Valley. And we do have the threat for some significant rain as low pressure moves up into southern New England. Not really any severe weather today, but certainly some heavy rain. As we get to tomorrow, Sunday, that threat for heavy rain does shift into Illinois and Indiana, as well as continuing over the Great Plains. And we could see a slow-moving complex affecting the central and eastern Gulf states. That'll cool temperatures down, but it will lead to a lot of locally nasty downpours. So if you're heading to the beaches, today is definitely the better of the 2 days on the Gulf Coast. As we get into Monday, we continue to see a threat for some locally flash flooding, and that continues into the Northeast here Monday into Tuesday. Actually, I think these days are off. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, here we go. So actually, yes, that threat today is actually the worst of the 2 days here on the central Gulf states. I'm so sorry for misleading you guys. I think the graphics were off, and I've been racing to get things done here this weekend. We got a lot going on. But yes, tomorrow still a threat for flooding over the upper Mississippi River Valley, parts of the Great Lakes and Northeast. And then that threat for heavy rain shifts east on Monday into the Great Lakes and into parts of Canada as well. And as we get on into Tuesday, as our front remains draped across the Gulf states, it's going to be hot out ahead of it. A lot of storm fuel in place for slow-moving storms that could produce some locally flash flooding storms from about Arkansas down to southern Georgia and northern Florida. So keep that in mind next week. If you do have a late season vacation, it could be marred by heavy slow-moving storms with locally strong wind as well. This morning, we do have a storm complex that's moving away from the Wichita area towards Ponca City, Chanute, Kansas, maybe even Joplin. Severe thunderstorm watch until 10 a.m. Central, and an enhanced risk later today into tonight. Behind this severe thunderstorm watch, we'll see more storms with the threat for a few tornadoes across parts of the mid-Missouri Valley around Norfolk and Omaha and Lincoln, Nebraska, up to Sioux Falls. And a leading shortwave will actually bring an enhanced risk for a few tornadoes in places like Indianapolis, Louisville, Evansville, and the southern part of Indiana. That is not associated with the main surface cyclone, but in fact an impulse that's out ahead of it that could add just enough wind shear to kick off a few tornadoes later today into the early part of this evening. The overall threat for wind, though, is going to be greatest in that area ahead in red. So southeast Colorado, right through the Kansas-Oklahoma borders and the northern Texas panhandle. And there could be some giant hail as well, especially here in southwestern Kansas and southeastern Missouri and the Oklahoma panhandle. So a very destructive complex of storms as we head towards this evening, continuing overnight across this region. I'm going to break down some of that timing for you. This will weaken some when it moves east tomorrow, but we still will likely see a lot of folks getting severe weather. Over 20 million are in that slight risk from St. Louis, Springfield, and Peoria on east through Cincinnati, all the way to about Charleston, West Virginia, down into western North Carolina, most of Tennessee in that slight risk, and all of Kentucky is in that slight risk. And I know some of you are watching me from Kentucky. I really wish I had better news for you guys, but this just doesn't look good tomorrow. We will likely see some nasty wind and some hail. Not really a tornado threat so much as a wind threat, a flood threat, and certainly a hail threat. But we could see a few tornadoes even in the afternoon in western and central PA, western Maryland, the panhandle of West Virginia, actually both panhandles, and eastern parts of the northeast parts of Ohio. And then with our surface cyclone, a bit of a tornado risk as well from Iowa into central Missouri and Illinois. As we get into Monday, the slight risk shifts east with our cold front and extends from parts of New York State, central New York, right down through the Delaware River Valley, most of Pennsylvania, all of West Virginia, and a good part of Maryland are in that severe threat for tomorrow. Western and northern Virginia, western North Carolina, middle and east Tennessee, eastern Kentucky, southeast Ohio, all the way down to North Georgia, upstate South Carolina, and northern parts of Alabama. That includes over 42 million Americans in the slight risk. And there is a chance this area does grow some. And there is even a chance that this could get bumped up to enhanced, depending on if we get enough, if the timing is right to see enough wind shear to see maybe a few tornadoes and some stronger winds. I would think the area that we have to watch would be southern and central Pennsylvania, right down I-81 into this zone here, and including Charleston, West Virginia, and eastward towards Martinsburg, Elkins, Morgantown. I think that area is the area to keep an eye on here for Monday. Beyond that, no organized severe threats, but I do think we'll see some. Here's why. We've got a big circulation center that's going to deepen here aloft over South Dakota today and tonight. Very fast wind flow aloft at 500 millibars. That is about 30,000 feet above the ground. We see winds that support widespread damage with 60 to 70 mile per hour winds across that corridor. And you'll see, let me back that up a little for you. This afternoon and evening, there is a shortwave in here that comes ahead of it, leads out ahead of it. And as we take a look at tonight, just enough of a kink here, enough of a shortwave to see maybe a little bit of enhanced rotation and a little bit of support for some stronger winds. So we may see kind of a leading setup of severe weather before the main event gets here later this weekend. Now tomorrow, you can see this upper low now moves through Iowa. Very fast winds aloft moving across the St. Louis area into parts of western Kentucky and Tennessee. And that's going to fuel additional storms. And that threat kind of shifts south and east, even into Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia towards tomorrow evening as the wind flow there starts picking up aloft. And then that's going to spread eastward. And Monday, the eastern United States will be under the gun with a fast start to severe weather possible in western PA, West Virginia, and western Virginia. So basically the Appalachian region here early Monday, pushing east into the afternoon through the Piedmont to the coastal plain, the I-95 corridor here Monday afternoon. This trough is going to leave the area by Tuesday, so we'll have quieter, cooler weather. You can see, though, another disturbance moving out of central Canada and another impulse moving through the Rockies should lead to active weather Monday and Tuesday in the Rockies and High Plains. So I do think we do see more severe weather beyond this initial 3-day threat of severe weather, the next storm. And that's Tuesday into Wednesday over the Central Plains and Rockies, and then moving into the Tennessee Valley and even parts of Dixie here as we head on into Tuesday night and Wednesday. Here's another disturbance. And this one, according to the model GFS, even has stronger winds aloft. So it's not showing up yet on the Storm Prediction Center's forecast, but models do have somewhat of a footprint of what could be another big severe weather event across some of these same areas, even a little bit farther south as we get to the middle of next week. So stay tuned for that. We'll look here, though, first at the weekend. This is the NAM model. You can see 2 areas of storms to keep an eye on for severe weather. One moving through parts of the Ohio Valley and lower lakes, the other moving into Arkansas and weakening. And then as we head into tonight, storms race eastward through the high plains, moving into northwest Arkansas and weakening. More storms flare up tomorrow over parts of the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, North Georgia, and then moving east as we head into Monday. We'll see 2 waves of severe weather potentially across Pennsylvania, Virginia, New York, and West Virginia. And then more storms in the afternoon beyond this time frame with cooler, wetter weather back over the lakes. So Monday, not a great day for Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison, or Grand Rapids. The severe weather threat stays east of you, but the cooler air is in place. So it'll feel kind of like early fall, and we could have some heavy rain. By the way, the Northwest is going to see a little bit of rain here as well. Some showers and storms over the interior. As it gets hotter here, we do see a little bit of monsoonal moisture. So a little bit of needed rain here over eastern Washington, southern British Columbia, western Idaho, and northeastern parts of Oregon. Let's zoom in and look at our big complex that's going to get going here. This is the wind field from the HRRR from weatherbell.com. This is kind of an hourly rapid refresh forecast. We could see some intense wind here over parts of the Tulsa area here. This is about 2 o'clock local this afternoon, as well as parts of the Ozarks region. But as we get on into this evening, this area could still hold together and affect Fort Smith here late in the day today. But here's the area to watch back over the high plains. And you can see storms are going to race pretty quickly across this entire region. Kansas could get crushed here tonight with the potential for 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts right around 11 o'clock this evening into the early overnight hours, maybe 83-mile-per-hour wind gusts if the HRRR is right on the northeast side of Wichita, and some strong winds and hail as well across this region. So multiple waves of severe weather starting today and continuing tonight and overnight moving into Arkansas. And you can see here's the front, and it's bounded by some strong winds anywhere from just west of Jonesboro, Arkansas at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning down towards the western side of middle parts of Arkansas and down into southern Oklahoma. We could have widespread wind damage out of this complex, and then things quiet down tomorrow. We do have some gusty winds behind our low pressure system in the Kansas City and Olathe areas. Looking farther east, we could have a few stronger storms this afternoon over parts of Indiana and Illinois. You can kind of see things start picking up here in southwest Indiana around 6, 7 o'clock. And then we have multiple complexes moving through southern Kentucky, western or southwest Kentucky, western Tennessee, and central and northern Arkansas. So multiple complexes here that could have some very strong wind with them. And then we get more tomorrow, unfortunately, moving through this region. Storms flare up. You can see around Louisville tomorrow, around mid-afternoon to late afternoon, some severe weather, more storms over southern and central Illinois, moving into Indiana tomorrow evening. And then finally, things quiet down. It'll be windy, but it will not be severe at that point later tomorrow night. Looking farther south and east, we see quiet weather today over the mid-Atlantic and mid-South up until this evening. Then storms race through western parts of the Tennessee Valley here, moving towards the Nashville area tonight around 9 o'clock central, and then heading east towards Crossville and into the Cumberland Gap here towards midnight tonight, and then continuing but weakening over eastern Kentucky and Tennessee. I mean, we may still have some nasty weather in the Smokies here overnight tonight, but tomorrow looks to be a better risk for severe weather You can see lots of wind energy in place here with storms flaring up over the Piedmont from Alabama up into areas near and east of Charlotte and even into Virginia here tomorrow afternoon. We could see a few stronger storms and then additional storms flaring up here with our actual front near northern Kentucky around Lexington, Fayette, and down to the east of Nashville, as well as perhaps some strong storms over central Alabama in places like Tuscaloosa and Birmingham early tomorrow night. So here's a look at the forecasted radar, and I'm going to have to move through pretty quickly here, but you can see the multiple rounds of severe weather expected. Supercell type storms this evening across this region, mainly from about 7 to about midnight. And then an organized complex continues into Oklahoma and Arkansas, and that could hold together tomorrow morning. So keep an eye on that. And then more storms flaring up over parts of Colorado here late in the day tomorrow, south and east of Denver, around Parker, Colorado Springs, and east. And then you can see our storms over the Mississippi Valley. And I will zoom over to that to show you in just a second. First, let's look at Oklahoma's weather. It looks pretty nasty here this afternoon around Tulsa and Stillwater, Muskogee. And then more storms flaring up around 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the Panhandles region here. And an organized threat for severe weather, everything moving quickly eastward tonight. So everything's going to move quickly. So be sure to have a way to receive warnings as you go to bed because you may not have much prep time here. Things will quiet down tomorrow morning, and then we could see a few strong storms back in the same area here later tomorrow evening into early Monday morning. Zipping eastward here, we can see heavy rain and storms, unfortunately, and this was yesterday's model, so let me show you today's, but it is wash, rinse, and repeat. Heavy rain over parts of central Illinois, southern Indiana. Not really a severe weather threat until we get to later in the afternoon here, about 5, 6 o'clock over eastern Illinois, then moving into western Indiana around 6, 7 o'clock. We also see kind of some bow echo type complexes here that are going to race pretty quickly and bring severe wind and maybe a few tornadoes. Some supercells embedded here. You can kind of see those in southwest Indiana around 6, 7, 8 o'clock, and then just a line of strong storms after that, more straight line wind. Then additional storms tomorrow are going to track across some of the same places here and some of the same time frames here tomorrow afternoon. So half the time this weekend actually isn't going to be bad, but the other half could be really nasty. So we're kind of, it's like the switch gets flicked here as we time out each of these individual disturbances. Then looking into the southeast, and I just have so much on my computer here, it's hard to keep up, but nasty weather potentially on the Gulf Coast here late this afternoon. You see that from about Pascagoula, Mississippi, to Iberville on east through Baldwin County, Alabama, right on into the Florida Panhandle. Slow movers here. It's going to be a hot, humid day, but we're also going to have slow movers that could produce a lot of rain. And then more intense wind is going to be staying off to your north over the northern parts of these areas. But tomorrow afternoon could be pretty rough over central and southern Alabama into the Piedmont of Georgia and South Carolina, and all the way up to the Lake Baden area into the Uwharrie Forest here late tomorrow afternoon around 4 or 5 o'clock in North Carolina. More storms on Monday, and those could get pretty nasty here. Let's look at the NAM so I can show you that real quick. And you can see we're going to see storms moving into this area and growing around the Charlotte area around 2, 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And as the air continues to heat up, I expect we're going to see a bigger area covered here later on Monday afternoon. This is only run through 2 o'clock, but beyond that, I think we'll see some pretty active weather. All right, let's look at the mid-Atlantic to northeast region here, and pretty decent weather today. Everything has moved offshore. The sun's back out. It's getting hotter, feeling more like summer for your beach day today. As we get to tomorrow, though, that's when we start seeing potential issues, starting in Pennsylvania around mid-afternoon, early to mid-afternoon. Same for western Maryland, eastern Ohio. This area we've got to keep an eye on for enhanced wind shear, maybe a few tornadoes as well. And we're also watching this area back in Kentucky behind that, and that's going to grow eastward and move into West Virginia tomorrow night, and southwestern Virginia and East Tennessee here tomorrow night. But this is what we have to watch out for Monday across the mid-Atlantic and northeast. And I'll show you all the NAM model, which goes up until 2 in the afternoon on Monday. And you can see things are going to start getting frisky here around mid-afternoon along and ahead of our front. Places like DuBois and Clearfield, just west of State College, down to Johnstown and Altoona. Somerset County, Pennsylvania, moving towards Cumberland, Maryland, towards Martinsburg, and to the west near Elkins, and down towards Orange County and Roanoke and Lexington, Buena Vista, Virginia, down to about Charlotte. We're going to get hit hard here later in the day Monday, starting in this area and then expanding eastward towards the Delaware Valley and the I-95 corridor in that 4 to 8 o'clock time frame on Monday. We could have a few tornadoes, but locally damaging winds are a bigger issue, I think. Tropics are quiet in the Atlantic right now. We just have a little bit too much upper level low activity going on here. The wind shear is too strong to see things form. Even though the waters are hot, conditions aren't favoring storms that can really gather enough strength to maintain their organization. So for the time being, it's still quiet, and it could still be that way for about another week or so before things may potentially change. On the Pacific side, though, Hurricane Dora starting to weaken a bit, still holding her own as she explores the Pacific, and another disturbance which could impact areas close to the Riviera and could even develop into our next tropical storm here on the Pacific side of things. Here's our storm moving off of the mid-Atlantic coast. Dry air in place over the northeast. Enjoy it while you can, but this is going to bring gusty conditions into Bermuda, but nothing that'll organize tropically. The central Atlantic, we're still watching a flare up here, but it's just not able to get going. Too much upper level wind shear in place. So for now, things are quiet. We'll see tropical rains moving into the islands, but nothing that should organize. And then behind it, we do have to keep an eye on this next huge wave, which will move off the African coast here early next week. And right now, nothing is really developing it. We have a couple of ensembles that show there's a slight chance for some development. The first wave could try to develop towards the Bahamas here around the 10th or 11th, but not a lot of model support for that. The next wave, again, doesn't have a lot of model support. It moves out of the Cape Verdes here next Sunday and into the central Atlantic the week of the 14th. But nothing really consistently showing development. We've seen some models try to, it's like whack-a-mole where you see one model run that pops up a hurricane, and then you whack it down, and then the next model says nothing. And that is really just the case of the mid-Atlantic blues here right now. We've got the heat, we've got the humidity, but we also have the wind shear. And right now, just low pressure, front after front here until we really get an established high in this area. And I think that could happen later in August. We're going to struggle to see storms get popped out. I think later August will be busier, but I wouldn't be shocked even if that started to delay itself. So the GFS says there just really isn't anything that develops here that we need to be concerned with. The Canadian model actually was trying to develop something earlier, but now is losing that ability to sustain anything. We'll just have a tropical wave moving through Florida next weekend. It's going to try to develop something off of Africa beyond that. But again, it's whack-a-mole with these models here. Now you see it, now you don't. So enjoy it while we can, because we will have a busier second half of August and especially September, I believe. Here's Hurricane Dora down to 110 miles per hour. Still a pretty intense storm. You don't want to be in the middle of that if you're on a boat. And it should remain a hurricane passing well south of Hawaii next Monday night and Tuesday over the central Pacific. So no threat to land. Winds will gradually weaken, but we'll still have a hurricane over the next 6 or 7 days. Typhoon Kanun is down to a tropical storm. Wind shear and dry air have gotten into the center here and weakened the storm. It is still battering the same islands that it hit last week, though, with very heavy rain. So while the winds are lighter, the rain is just continuing to pile up and cause major issues here in Okinawa, right up the Ryukyu Islands, and now heading into southwestern Japan. As the storm moves into the Pacific and out of the East China Sea, later this weekend, it does have a chance to re-strengthen into a typhoon and hit southwest Japan. After that, I think it's going to head up into the East China Sea and parallel the Korean coast. This is moving so slowly because we have such a strong region of high pressure from eastern China through Japan and South Korea. And those poor areas are dealing with extreme heat right now. That ridge is like a death ridge, like we've seen in Texas all summer. So it's protecting them from a quicker moving storm, but it's leading to a slow moving storm that continues to produce lots of rain. The slow movers have been the biggest problem here in the U.S. Those of you who remember Hurricane Harvey in Texas know exactly what I'm talking about. Hurricane Florence in North Carolina, South Carolina know exactly what I'm talking about. They may not be intense storms by the time they hit, but they are not moving quickly, and days of rain cause major problems. Unfortunately, I think that's the concern here in southwestern Japan. Then things speed up, and we'll have a storm heading into North Korea or parts of China, or even parts of Russia here later next week. Here's the ensembles showing that nothing's moving quickly for a few more days, and then things finally do pick up later next week. GFS model says this will strengthen again and maybe a Category 2 typhoon by Tuesday night and Wednesday, and then will weaken as it goes through Japan and comes up the east side of Korea. By the way, there is another typhoon potential here, slow mover as well, so it's going to give us headaches in the forecasting department and could threaten parts of northern Japan or central Japan in about 10 days, but way off in the future. Still a lot of uncertainty on where that's going to end up going. I hope you all have a wonderful Saturday. I hope you have a blessed day. Thank you so much for watching. Invite your friends if they are weather fans or they're concerned about the severe weather outbreak. I want them to watch. I do take Sundays off. I'm a Christian man, and I do believe in the Sabbath and a day of rest. I know the Old Testament says that's actually Friday night and Saturday. I observe it on Sunday, along with many Christians. But I give all the glory to God who allows me to do this every day. My gift to you guys from God is to be a meteorologist, and my calling is to just tell you the good news that Jesus is coming again, and we have the ability to be saved through the grace of God through his son, Jesus Christ, who was crucified so that we, if we accept Christ like I did 10 years ago, I moved out of a dark place into a place of joy, knowing that I'm redeemed now, that we will reap the grace of God and have eternal life. Galatians 6:9, and let us not be weary in well-doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not. And I just had a butt kicker of a week. I got a lot of stuff done, but both my wife and I were working late several days. I couldn't really spend a lot of time on this. It was a little frustrating, but I'm not weary. I know that doing all this hard work, planting these seeds are going to lead to a bountiful harvest, and seeds come up on God's time, not on our time. We just have to continue to push ourselves. Whether you are dealing with a health challenge, you have to continue to push yourself to get better and trust in God that he will take care of you and provide for you. If you're dealing with job changes and challenges, maybe you've got financial issues, continue to sow into your problems and let God do all the hard work. Don't try to do it yourself. This has been spoken by many of Jesus's disciples, especially Paul to the church of Galatians, telling us just to continue to persevere and to not give up. I've been on a diet for I don't even know how many years, but I'm not stopping it. I'm going to get there eventually. I just have to have joy in the process. Enjoy the process, because the destination, while it may be fleeting, is still there. God's going to get us there, and I want to pray for you if you're struggling in that process right now. I hope you all have a great day. Please be safe out there and have a wonderful weekend. Catch you again on Monday morning. God bless you.